Hello. So this field trip was a really great way to show how field trips can fit into social studies because social studies is the easiest place for field trips to fit in. You can go visit historic sites, museums, stuff like that. But a lot of times I know I personally had field trips that were just basically designed to just have fun and weren't really useful, especially in elementary school. But I thought this trip was really good at showing just how useful a trip can be and the way to make it useful. Because the places that we visited or were going to visit and then had to visit online were a lot of different places where the history wasn't in your face. There was a few places that were museums, but a lot of it was places like the Colored Musicians Club or the Michigan Street Baptist Church, where they're just places where history happened. And it's important for students to be able to take these places, understand them, and then understand how the role played in the history of Buffalo and the history of the United States as a whole without it being right in your face. And that kind of goes to the AIW framework because the students need to uh, use discipline inquiry to kind of break down these places, especially like the African American Food Co-op, which isn't doesn't seem like it's a place to do history research or to learn history, but it's somewhere where history's happening as we speak, especially with a lot of the other schools like the Futures Academy and stuff. And you need to be able to understand that, break it down, and how that history is being made and the role it has had in history. That also goes to the constructing knowledge part, where you're taking this information and then you're figuring out the role it's played in history, and you're constructing that historical knowledge. And of course, this is something that's outside of school in that it's a place in your community. So not only are you understanding the historical context of some random place somewhere in the country, this is somewhere where you live. It's some place maybe you pass every day on your way to school or the grocery store or something. And it makes your community become a lot more alive, vibrant, and really important. And that's something that is really important for history, but it can be used for a lot of other disciplines where different places like the Colored Musicians Club, it works really well for history, especially civil rights history, but it also works for musical history too. And you have different places like that that you can fit other disciplines into. It's not as easy as history, and you have to be a lot more selective about where you go. Some places are easier, like the Buffalo Science Museum and science, that fits really well. But some places like math or English, you have to do a little bit more. But there is places out there as long as you know what you're looking for and you have an understanding of how this can be helpful for your students. And that also works with the CRT because you're putting the students out into their community, which makes their community more relevant. They understand why their community is important, what what their community has contributed to the general historical narrative, and it makes them more invested in their own community and therefore more invested in their own history.